Okay, so a couple days ago, all of the skill trees for the Wonderlands classes were revealed, and today I'm going to be going over the Brr-Zerker skill tree. Brr-Zerker is a frost and melee damage themed character. Gets a lot of bonus ice damage and bonus melee damage. So each class has a class feat, which is just a passive ability that is on anytime you are using that class. In the case of the Berserker, it is Rage of the Ancients, which says using an action skill causes the Fate Maker to become enraged, adding bonus frost damage to their attacks. Enraged duration will not deplete while an action skill is active and ends if the Fate Maker enters Save Your Soul. And Save Your Soul is the equivalent of Fight for Your Life. It's effectively the same thing. And activating an action skill while already enraged restores a portion of the enrage timer. So enrage is going to be something that you want active as often as possible. It gives you damage and survival, and it's very important to the Berserker's play pattern. Which means you're going to want either short cooldowns or long action skills to prevent it from running out or keep it active. And speaking of action skills, Berserker is 2. Every class is 2. Berserker has Dreadwind. Fate Maker spins, slashing anything nearby with their melee weapon, essentially becoming a pain tornado. Grants increased movement speed and slow immunity for a duration. So, my guess is that this does melee damage and uses your melee weapon. So if you have a unique weapon or an elemental weapon, it'll carry those properties over while using the action skill. Movement speed, move faster, pretty straightforward. Slow immunity, you can't be frozen by your enemies. The other action skill, Feral Surge. Fate Maker leaps toward their target, dealing frost damage to all nearby enemies. Any non-boss enemy's damage will be instantly killed if their total health is below a certain percentage. Feral Surge kills an enemy, its cooldown is reset. Feral Surge, on the surface, seems very good at keeping Enrage active, so you can chain it by killing an enemy with Feral Surge, immediately cools down, kill another enemy, keeps Enrage active. To get into the actual skills, speaking of which, you get your first skill point at level 2. And Tier 1 says Ancestral Frost, 5-point skill, frost damage increased. Pretty straightforward. We don't know the numbers on these skills yet. We'll have to wait for more information to come out before we can see what those numbers are. But frost damage is increased, the elemental damage boost, pretty straightforward. Savagery, 5 points, melee damage is increased, and rage duration is increased. Skill seems important because it's one, a melee skill, and also works on keeping Enrage active for as long as possible, and that is really what you want to be doing on this character. And, Unyielding, 3-point skill, percentage of missing health regenerates over time, while Enraged, its effect is doubled, so again, more reason to keep Enrage active. Tier 2, Icebreaker. Fate Maker gains increased damage dealt to enemies that are slowed. The closer an enemy is to being frozen, the more damage is increased. Also, having higher frost damage lets you freeze them easier, so it synergizes with Ancestral Frost. Additionally, enemies that are frozen receive triple melee damage. That is just how the frost element works. It's how Cryo worked in the older games. So, this skill stacks with that already existing bonus and is very powerful if you're doing a melee build. Old Ways. 5-point skill. Fate Maker deals bonus damage against increased damage reduction. Closer they are to an enemy. Closer the enemy is, greater the bonus. So again, even if you're not using melee, just close range weapons like shotguns or pistols, this is probably a good skill to pick up. And if you are doing melee damage, it's even more important. Damage reduction is important for surviving when you are meleeing enemies. Instinct, 3-point skill. Reload speed is increased, weapon swap speed is increased, while enraged, its effect is doubled. Again, enraged is extremely important if you're playing as the Berserker. However, if you're doing a melee build, the skill doesn't seem particularly useful. It's just reload speed and weapon swap speed, which are nice bonuses to have even on a melee build, but your points are probably better spent elsewhere. On to Tier 3. Cold Snap. 3-point, movement speed is increased, frost efficiency is increased, while enraged, its effect is doubled. Movement speed is very important for moving from target to target when you are doing melee. Frost efficiency lets you freeze enemies easier for the bonus damage from Icebreaker. So both very good. And even if you're not doing melee build, Frost efficiency and movement speed are just good things to have. Armor defense, 1 point skill. Portion of the Fatemaker's ward is reserved and cannot be restored, but their maximum health is increased by a percentage of the reserved amount. Health can no longer be reserved. So if you play Borderlands 3, health being reserved was the thing. Remove a chunk of your health, add it to your shield. It was seen a lot on Moes. It's seen a lot of Moes because of her shield skills. This kind of opposite takes away your shield, which is what ward is. Ward is the same thing as your shield. It takes away your ward, increases your maximum health. And with the health regen and max health boosts that are in the skill tree, seems like a good skill to pick up, especially if they only being 1 point. It's pretty free to grab as you're moving down the skill tree. And Blood Frenzy, 3 point skill, kill skill, restores a percentage of your enrage timer and a percentage of your maximum health. This is, again, super important because you want to keep enrage active all of the time. And healing is also important when you are doing a melee build. Melee builds tend to take a lot more damage than a standard gun build. So you want to be able to stay alive. This skill does that while also increasing your damage by keeping you enraged. Tier 4, Ancient Fury, 5 point skill. Max health is increased, splash damage is increased. So if you're using splash weapons, skill is very good. Max health is generally just a good thing to have. And assuming the damage formula works the same way as it did in Borderlands 3, splash damage is a very strong damage boost. And I imagine that Feral Surge deals splash damage. So increasing your splash damage allows you to use Feral Surge to chain action skills and keep enraged active. Relentless Rage, 1 point skill. Fatemaker damages an enemy while in Save Your Soul. Its duration is extended. Amount decreases over time. That is functionally identical to Too Angry to Die, which is a Guardian rank perk from Borderlands 3. So while in Fight for Your Life, damaging an enemy refills your Fight for Your Life meter as diminishing returns. Same thing here. Lets you get out of Fight for Your Life easier. Also, killing an enemy while in Save Your Soul will cause the Fatemaker to become enraged. So, enrage ends if you die, if you go down. And then when you come back up, you have to wait for your action skill to cool down before you can trigger enrage again. Having the skill, which is a 1 point skill, makes it pretty free to pick up. Lets you get out of Fight for Your Life, or Save Your Soul rather, with enrage active. So basically won't ever lose enrage if you're this far down in the tree, which is very powerful, very strong. You're on tier 5, Blast Chill, 1 point max. Whenever the Fatemaker deals melee damage to an enemy, there's a chance to release a Frost Nova, dealing frost ability damage to nearby enemies. Novas cannot critically hit. So again, freezing enemies, very important for a melee build. Especially since this triggers off of melee damage. But also, because Dreadwind deals melee damage and spins, hitting multiple enemies very quickly, this has a potential to trigger lots of different Novas. Lots of Novas freeze enemies very easily and give you bonus damage. Additionally, those Novas likely deal splash damage, making Ancient Fury stronger. Skill, again, 1 point, pretty much free to pick up. Iron Squall, fire rate is increased. If you're not doing a melee build, you probably shouldn't be this far down in the tree, so that fire rate bonus isn't particularly useful. However, melee attack speed being increased is very good, and then while enraged, effect is doubled. So, if you're this far down the tree, you should be able to keep enraged active, and melee attack speed is very good when you have lots of melee damage bonuses already. Lets you get more high damage hits in rather than just making your damage higher. Which also attack speed lets you trigger Blast Chill quicker or more often, which increases your damage output. Tier 6 Capstone, Blood of the Fallen, 1 point skill. Kill skill, Fatemaker's remaining action skill cooldown is is reduced by a percentage. If an action skill is currently active, its duration is extended instead. Right, so this lets you, killing an enemy to reduce your action skill cooldown lets you activate Enrage quicker, assuming you don't have it. And then killing an enemy while your action skill is active to extend its duration will allow you to, again, keep Enrage active more often, keep it active longer. Also, this does not just work with the Brr-Zerker's action skills. So if you are a multi-class in the Stabbomancer and using the Ghost Blade, that will work as well. Because the skill doesn't synergize particularly great with things like Feral Surge. It lets you get the cooldown back faster, but ideally you're chaining kills and getting the cooldown back instantly. It works with Dreadwind pretty well, but not very well with Feral Surge. However, you can use action skills from other classes. It's the whole point of the multi-class system. Anyway, that is the Brr-Zerker skill tree. Next video, I'll be going over the Clawbringer skill tree.